Number 61, Marjorie Butterworth by Maxine Burton. In the village where she lived, Marjorie Butterworth was a noticeable figure. Her rotund frame was attached by rather short, spindly legs. How they supported such a sizable body was anyone's guess. Although she didn't know it, she had been nicknamed by one of the locals Marge Butterball. This was because she looked like two large round balls of butter stuck one on top of the other, and always wore yellow. It was her favourite colour, but with her tight, curly red hair, it only made her stand out more. Marjorie, for all her appearance, was a kindly soul and would help out if she could. But unfortunately, she spent most of her time consuming all manner of sugary cakes and buns from the local bakery. She particularly liked cupcakes and was often seen with one half eaten in her hand and one ready to be eaten in the other. However, due to the lockdown, she was confined to the house, and because of her weight, she knew she was in the at-risk category. But she missed her sugary treats so much, she decided to bake them at home. Portion control was not one of Margie's strong points, and she baked far too many cupcakes. Even she couldn't eat them all. She decided to deliver them around the village and left a batch on everyone's doorstep with a note explaining who they were from. Word soon got round as they were delicious, and Marjorie found herself baking and delivering every day. A consequence of this was that by walking around the village, carrying large baskets of baked goods, she started losing weight. She found she was much lighter and fitter. The village would have to find a new nickname for her now. Number 62, The Right Honourable Jonah Bombast by Deb Rhodes. It must be aforesaid that there is nothing spindly about the Right Honourable Jonah Bombast. With the gait and dustiness of a tumbleweed, standing at the height of a baby elephant, and setting forth with an equally heavy stamp of foot, the present gentleman is a human juggernaut who speaks as if his mouth was full of marbles, and with which apparatus is apt to simultaneously baffle, shock, annoy, and amuse. Since the year 20, this singular, well-fed, educated man of privilege has been judged by citizens and society's observers while cutting a swathe to his current position, seemingly unable at any point to find a trustworthy tailor and without once crossing paths with a hair comb up to the challenge of taming his reckless and unimaginable blonde crop. Notwithstanding an apparent indecision as to whom his soul should be mated, this ebullient, resilient, intelligent peddler of a two-wheeled conveyance has collided with children and parliamentarians alike in a way that has shaken off the starched collar of government. The doors of Whitehall have now been blown open by his characteristic vigour and now well-worn tropes promising to tackle the world's most wicked problems head on. Seeds of doubt, however, have found fertile ground around him, fed with exhibitions of jocularity and unguardedness on the world stage in the company of at times rancorous counterparts, most of whom by comparison appear to have left their personalities at home. Time will tell whether or not he measures up to the preeminent responsibilities expected of him as his strength and wit is tested, and as growing uncertainty surrounds us. Amongst other things, the future will be final witness to the successes and failures of the man called Joe Bow. Number 63, Desmond Goodbody by William MacKenzie. It was a twist of fate that Desmond should bear the name he did. His body was a mess. The thin shoulders sloped down to a belly and bottom of pendulous weight, and the stout legs were wide and round. Atop the whole there was a disproportional head, too small. But within the unpleasant frame there was a good man trying hard to get out. He held a dear wish to be of use to his fellow man. In an effort to find an outlet for his true nature, he joined the church. Surely the people there would see past his outer shell and see the saintly man within. There was no immediate recognition of his ambition, but then, oh blessing, oh happy day, the COVID-19 virus struck, and Desmond recognized that he could hide in protective gear, and from the anonymity of a mask he could dispense charity. In a blast of publicity, when the virus was beaten, he would be unmasked and recognized as a hero. He phoned the vicar, who said he could certainly be of use as a delivery man, but that he would need protective gear. "Can you supply it?" Desmond asked. "Sadly, no," said the vicar. "Certainly not to fit you." As if on cue, Desmond came across a teleprogram about beekeeping and immediately recognized the beekeeper's protective suit as the perfect disguise from behind which he could dispense bounty. He hunted the internet and did come across a bee outfit, and he arranged that the seller should leave it on his doorstep. The box contained a cleverly made bumblebee fancy dress outfit, complete with giant wings. Doggedly, Desmond was in the process of trying it on when there was a knock at the door. If the vicar, who stood on the garden path, was surprised to be met by a giant bee, he did not show it. Instead, he pointed to a carrier bag which rested against Desmond's door. "Just a turnip and a cabbage for your soup, Mr. Goodbody." The bumblebee closed his door and sat at his kitchen table, viewing his veg, and wept. Number 64, Daisy Lou Belle, by Valerie Reilly. Daisy Lou Belle, the model, with her bleached blonde locks and baby blue eyes, helped by coloured contact lenses, cosmetic surgery that made her lips so thick they looked swollen, and enlarged boobs that stood out, looking odd on her otherwise slim body. Every few days, Daisy Lou Belle visited the beauty salon to enjoy all the treatments they could offer, including a spray tan, manicure and pedicure. Her clothes and shoes were all designer, of course. What else would you expect a girl as glamorous as Daisy Lou Belle to wear? Being so self-obsessed, she thought of nobody else except herself. She was horrified when the COVID virus forced the world into lockdown and all her special places were closed. It wasn't long before her dark roots were showing in her now messy hair. Her nails were chipped and broken, and she felt lonely and really sorry for herself. She decided to phone her older sister Penny, who worked in a care home, begging her to come and do her hair and her nails. Penny told her she was far too busy for frivolities, and if Daisy needed something to do, then she should come and lend a hand at the home and stop acting like a spoilt brat. Daisy Lou Belle had always obeyed her sister, so the next day she drove her posh car to the home and volunteered to help. With gloves covering her now unpainted nails and a mask over her pouting lips, she donned an apron and asked her sister what to do. She spent the day chatting to the residents, serving their meals and tea and biscuits, and was surprised to find she enjoyed helping other people. Daisy is now a permanent member of staff at the home and cheers up the male residents no end. Number 65, Jed Thorogood, by Pauline Short. The balance of power has changed since coronavirus hit town. Those who were prominent in normal times have taken a back step, and those you hardly noticed before have come into their own. Among the latter is Jed Thorogood, a man of immaculate appearance whenever you meet him. One imagines the only time he looked unironed was when he entered the world, and so mortified at being shaken to induce breath, he took it as some form of admonition for daring to arrive underdressed, and decided it would never happen again. The wind can be blowing, the rain can be teeming, but there's Jed, a picture of perfection, pristine, polished, and performance ready. His tweed sports jacket is always carefully buttoned, his grey trousers have a crease which is razor sharp, and one wonders how he manages to keep his brown brogues so shiny and clean, even when he's been tromping through the muddy fields which surround the village. Because trump he does, accompanied by his trusty companions, 3 greyhounds, an obvious choice for someone so particular about his appearance. These fussy canines don't attract mud and sidestep puddles, content to walk beside someone who looks as immaculate as they do. But then on VBE Day, who is this stranger, straight-backed, arms swinging, marching down the road? Well, it's the same man who has found his forte, running the village hub, delivering food, picking up prescriptions, and generally being indispensable as befits a man who is army trained. For Jed looks every inch the soldier, wearing the khaki he had saved for this very occasion. He stands proudly beside the flag-decked bell tent he has erected, and waves and smiles, or should I say, salutes to all who cross his path with a smart good morning. Jed Thorogood, the stuff of life at the time of crisis. Number 66, Technology Teacher by Lucinda Craker. She perched like an anxious sparrow on the corner of the seat, waiting nervously for Google Classrooms to begin, her fluffy novelty slippers tucked out of sight. The echoes of the pupils' cries and jaunts throughout the day a distant memory now. The spare room her cell, where she sat work and communicated in a distant and unfamiliar manner with her pupils, thanks to COVID-19. Her enthusiasm vanished as she looked at the desk. Her laptop was precariously balanced under a pile of books and staggered papers of to-do lists, IT training that beckoned like the dentist chair, as unfamiliar and welcome as a detention to a Year 10 pupil. Coffee mugs and glasses poised like soldiers out of sight, along with the abandoned chocolate bar wrappers discarded in frustration 5 seconds earlier. Like thousands of other teachers, the march to work consisted now of a walk up the stairs to the new classroom, connected by the wonders of computers and technology, her nemesis. More threatening and intimidating than any pupil she had faced, outwitting her with new moves at every junction. Setting work and motivating pupils in a way that she struggled to understand whilst technology overtook her, whizzing past like a greyhound, leaving her confused over which button to press and how to record the latest Google Meet or insert a video into a lesson plan. COVID had upturned the teaching world, and now she grappled daily with the different demands from colleagues, parents, pupils to teach and deliver and challenge. Her face constantly screwed up in concentration as she tried to keep up with the continually changing requirements. Her inspiration to keep going, despite the overwhelming waves of fear that smothered her, was her pupils to help. Recording light blinked. She inhaled. 3, 2, 1. Number 67, Aerialist by Rami J. Salameh. Seated with crossed legs, she stood up in one fluid motion, as if a puppeteer had tugged on strings from the eaves above her head. The curtain had parted. The audience was one, and I was momentarily mesmerized by her need to move, contort, as if the puppeteer continued to entertain his only crowd member. A black bow-tie tattoo wrapped her thin, delicate neck and undulated every time she swallowed. Her sleeveless shirt revealed sinewy yet defined muscular arms, one of which was inked with calligraphic swirls which read, "Help yourself before helping others." "Do you prefer to talk when moving?" "Movement is my life, my job, my means of escape." "Escape from what?" "From a predetermined life." "Where do you escape?" "Everywhere our big top moves to. I swing under a tented sky, beyond the reach of hurt. It's where I feel the safest, even though I'm pirouetting above an expectant gathering." Silver studs piercing both eyebrows twitched, and the dark pupils of her eyes dilated as the light of her imagination flooded through the warmth of hazel irises. The flickering montage of subtle emotions expressed her sudden sense of liberty. This seemed to provide respite from the staccato outline of dried tears which plotted their path over high cheekbones, towards nervous and slightly pursed lips, visibly changing her expression from mischievous to anxious. "Does your family know that you're a circus trapeze artist?" "I'm an aerialist, a bird that seeks freedom in the sky," replying brusquely. "I search new places under the gaze of new, more accepting eyes." "Who do you most closely associate with, boys or girls?" "Neither. Just call me Mux, transgender neutral," she said, whilst threading her fingers through short-cropped hair. "Or just as the aerialist. Will I see you for next week's session?" Number 68, Phineas Gleebthrostle by Mark Bryant. Reaching the top of the staircase, Sloper rapped on the door of the attic room. A one-armed, balding old man, wearing a dressing gown and slippers and carrying a tabby cat with a single evil-looking eye, dragged it open as piles of wine-stained, typewritten papers littered the floor. So this was Phineas Gleebthrostle, thought the young reporter, the legendary composer of countless witty puzzles and riddles for Christmas crackers. The grimy circular window revealed a glimpse of St. Paul's to the left of a roll-top desk, and a table lamp festooned with deadline reminders scrawled in a shaky hand. The unshaven, bespectacled hack put down the cat, limped across the room, and sat down in front of his ancient typewriter. He inserted the back of a used envelope and started tapping away with the little finger of his right hand, all the others being gnarled and swollen with this arthritis. Then he paused, looked at his watch, and turned towards Sloper. In a voice like the death rattle of some prehistoric bird, he asked what he wanted. The young man stammered, "Did you write the riddle, 'What is the difference between a duck?' and its answer, 'One leg looks the same as the other'?" Gleebthrostle smiled and said he had, a long time ago, but that it was a pigeon, not a duck. "But what does it mean?" Sloper asked. The old man's laugh revealed a cluster of broken teeth. "Mean?" he cackled. "Why, nothing at all. It was a joke to amuse my school friends." So that was it, thought Sloper. All the agonizing on the internet about the weird riddle that had gone viral had its roots in a schoolboy jest. The old man then impatiently waved him away and continued clacking on his aged Remington to meet yet another deadline. Number 69, Harry Harbottle by Nick Fletcher. Harry Harbottle was a man you could not forget, a true Cockney with a deep husky voice, a friendly, kind-looking man. He looked younger than his 50 years. He had a cherub red face, a big loud man with thick bushy greying hair and a goatee beard. He was one of life's doers. He was easygoing and he lived for now. He charmed everyone he met. As he walked the wards of the London hospital, he was everyone's friend. He loved his job as a part-time hospital porter. "All right, mate, how's life?" he said to the doctor as he lifted his face mask. Harry wasn't on the front line, but he knew he was playing his part in this awful pandemic. Harry's life had not been easy. He knew from his days on the streets how tough the world could be, but it had made him the man he was. He had life skills that only he could have and use them every day. During the crisis, he helped transport people and clapped with his colleagues when someone left intensive care. He knew his life was at risk, but he kept on smiling. Every Thursday night at 8, on the dot, he joined the ambulance lads and clapped. During these tough times, he wanted to do more, and on a Wednesday afternoon, on his day off, he helped out at his local free fridge for a couple of hours. He loved working at the food bank during the lockdown, made some great friends. On VE Day's 75th anniversary, he wheeled a man out of intensive care as his colleagues clapped. That night, after his shift, he went home to his flat and watched the Queen's address. He felt pride, raised his pint and sang, "We'll meet again." Number 70. The Martin Twins by Ephrosyne Hobbs. Never in her wildest dreams did Dorothea imagine that she would be spending her grey years with her twin brother Theodore. Yet here she was, ensconced in his bachelor pad, grateful that she could at least tend his long-neglected garden, and thus occupied, keep her sorrow at bay. Theo and Thea, as the Martin twins had always been known, were in fact as different as chives and chocolate. This was reflected in their popularity amongst their peers, from their school years to saga clubs. Thea sighed as she pruned yet another overgrown rosebush. She wondered how her grandchildren, Lily and Mark, were settling in. Her son George and his family had recently moved to Oxford, where George had secured a position as researcher. "Following in his mother's footsteps," whispered Thea proudly, her hazel eyes suddenly glistening. As Thea had devoted her life to scientific research, balancing her work commitments with bringing up her beloved boy, her brother wasted his potential during long periods of unemployment, blaming everyone else for his lack of advancement. Theo currently worked as a traffic warden, where he excelled himself at maintaining his unsavoury reputation. He actually booked an ambulance whilst the paramedics unloaded their patient. "It's a yellow line," was his defence as a job's worth. Latterly, Theo's crooked nose could be discerned through his twitching curtains. He relished spying on his neighbours. He reported a visitor next door, though it transpired that the man was only delivering medicines. Meanwhile, Thea offered to get the shopping for 3 elderly neighbours, supported her local hospice with extra donations, and she made mass for the care home. Theo frowned upon these voluntary activities. "Community?" Theo scorned and grumbled. "What's the community ever done for me?" "You get out of life what you put in," was Thea's heartfelt motto. Number 71. We'll Meet Again by Judy Chapman. The twinkling blue eyes and smiling lived in a face looking out from the TV screen reassures Sarah that all is right in the world. There is a lifetime of memories in the old lady's sunny smile. It seems to be saying that in the 10 decades of her life, she has seen it all. War, nuclear threat, viruses of varying severity, and now this horrific COVID-19. To her, it's just a blip in the greater scheme of things. Smartly dressed, she sits comfortably in her lounge and looks lovingly at her daughter, who is her carer, dresser, companion, and admirer. Watching the TV image of this great lady with Sarah is her granddaughter, Eloise. "Look, Grandma, there's Nana Jane," Sarah sighs. Perhaps isolation is getting to the child more than she realized. Gently she reminds her, "It can't be Nana Jane, darling. Remember, she quietly passed away last year." "But it looks like her. Look, she's even got a card from the Queen behind her, just like Nana Jane had." Returning her eyes to the TV screen, Sarah can see what Eloise means. Look beyond the carefully made up but wrinkled skin and neatly styled grey hair, and you can see the popular young girl this remarkable lady had been in her younger days. Just like Sarah's own recently departed mother, this sprightly and articulate centenarian lived through a time of wartime horror and deprivation that thankfully Sarah's baby boomer generation could only imagine. Also, like her mother, known affectionately as Nana Jane to her family, she had survived and emerged as a strong, independent woman. Monochrome film clips flash up on the screen. This is no longer an old lady, but an attractive young girl in safari gear, singing the anthem of the coronavirus, "We'll Meet Again." Number 72, Mr. Tinks by Sue Dobson. Mr. Tinks, a willowy man in denial of approaching senior years, a shock of silvery plaited hair framing his weathered face, his quizzical eyes sky blue, twinkling as stars. His life would tell of few family ties. Posted to boarding school at an early age, his creative talent and love of all things scientific led him to become talented in DT and qualified in botanical science. Vocationally, he travelled and lived abroad for many years. Recovering and discovering various botanical creations from remote civilizations, he was largely fulfilled. Called back by inheritance to his country of origin, he returned in his Winnebago to a rural coastal homestead in England, whereupon he created for himself a small nursery. Encouraged by science in his efforts to provide an economical irrigation system, he set up a small workshop of 3D machinery. A small businessman, he made his way. He was an intriguing magpie of a man. Locals knew him if the character he created, yet knew not how to reach him. Mr. Tinks had no time for politics. Suits invaded his radio-discussing phases. His hope lay in sustainability and self-sufficiency, akin to the earth beneath his feet. His planner highlighted occasions of summer solstice, new moons, and turning tides. He wondered at the recovery of the ozone and natural forces, whilst a viral storm called COVID-19 brought mankind to a standstill. He believed somehow this was his time to serve a waiting world.